let's talk about Brexit, which is the other issue that comes out of this by-election. Given where we are now, given how long we've got, and looking at what Conservative leadership candidates are saying, do you back an extension to our membership of the EU beyond the 31st of October to get a deal?
Look, I think we do have to now move on. It's clear that
move on beyond an extension.
No, let me explain. We have tried our best. It was the government's job to try and secure the referendum result and to get a deal and to make sure that we left the EU. They failed to do that through their own incompetence and the intransigence of the red lines that they laid down. We have then tried to work conscientiously in the cause of democracy. We were remain and reform was our original position. But because of the referendum result, we have tried diligently to work with the government to get a compromise deal that would be acceptable, that would leave the European Union, but would be acceptable to the broad majority within Parliament and would get through. Again, the government's obstinacy and red lines precluded us from doing that.
So where does that leave you now?
Exactly. So now, we are now in the position where our party conference set out very clearly that if we could not get a deal, if we were that was acceptable, if we were facing a disastrous no-deal situation, then we would do everything we could to stop that. And that means a second public vote, either through a general election or through a second referendum.
So you are now...
That's our party conference position, and the events of the past months where Theresa May has gone beyond the original deadline, failed because of her own intransigence to negotiate an acceptable deal with us, we're now in that position.
To be absolutely clear, the official Labour Party position now is for a second referendum.
It's exactly the same as it was at the party conference, which is that if we could not get that, then of course we would oppose no deal, and we would look either for a public vote or indeed for a general election to do that. And
I'm interested you can't just say yes when I say is the policy now for a second referendum, because almost everybody at the top of your party thinks that now.
Yes,
Tom Watson thinks the Deputy Leader, Shadow Chancellor John MacDonald thinks the leaders in Scotland and Wales think it, Transport Secretary thinks it, the Brexit Secretary thinks it. Almost everybody seems to agree that a second referendum at the top of the Labour Party is now necessary, with one notable exception. You know who I mean? Jeremy Corbyn on Friday. We are not at the stage yet where Parliament's actually voted on another referendum. I think it would be much better if there was actually a general election. Now, we know he wants a general election. We know you want a general election, but that ball is not in your court.
Well, actually, you've got it entirely the wrong way round, because you know very well that the whole mechanism of Parliament means that we have, as the opposition, no power to deliver a second referendum. And the Conservative...
Or an election.
Sorry, that's where you're wrong, because, of course, what we do have is we have one power that could actually force the government, and that is to call for a motion of no confidence in the government.
But you only win it if you have Tory votes.
Yes, indeed. And we might be able to... Certain Tories have said that they would actually, in the circumstance of a no deal, support a motion of no confidence in the government. The point is this, that in order to get a second referendum, the government would have to introduce legislation, and the government have made it clear that they don't want to do that. We could force their hand for a general election because we can introduce that. We have the power to introduce that motion of no confidence. So I'm very happy to go for a second referendum, and I've told you if the government's going to do that, I would be delighted.
But you just don't think it's going to happen. Can I just come back to where we started on this?
So that's exactly the point, and that is exactly why Jeremy said that he thinks that the way forward
All right, you've
would
explained
be a
that very clearly. Let me come back to where we started, however, which is, as things stand, we are heading to leave the EU on the 31st of October, quite possibly without a deal. What I want to know is, what is the Labour Party's policy about an extension beyond the 31st of October, if it's a no deal otherwise?
If we cannot secure a public vote, either in a general election or in a second referendum, then of course we would not want to crash out on no deal, and we would want to extend. But that's not the point. What we want to avoid is a no deal.